It was a gray morning in Haarlem, the Netherlands, in the winter of 1943. A girl rode her bicycle toward a checkpoint. German soldiers stood at the barrier. Her basket held vegetables on top. Underneath, hidden in a false bottom, sat forged identity papers meant for people in hiding. She was 14 years old. Her name was Freddie Oversteegen. She would not be old enough to vote for another 7 years, but she was already part of one of the most dangerous resistance networks in occupied Holland. Why would anyone hand a mission like this to a child? That question sits at the center of one of the least told stories of the Second World War. Most people picture resistance fighters as grown men with rifles in the woods. That picture is incomplete. Across occupied Europe, teenagers, and sometimes children younger than Freddie, carried messages, weapons, and false documents through streets crawling with soldiers. They were chosen precisely because no one suspected them. A girl on a bicycle looked like nothing. That was the entire point. Freddie was recruited in 1941 by a resistance organizer named Frans van der Wiel, who led a Haarlem cell of the Council of Resistance, known in Dutch as the Raad van Verzet. He came to her family's door and asked her mother a blunt question. Could Freddie help distribute illegal newspapers? Her mother, who already sheltered refugees in their small home, said yes. Freddie's older sister, Truus, joined soon after. Two sisters, barely out of childhood, became couriers for a resistance cell operating under Nazi occupation. Here is what a courier's job actually involved. A courier is a messenger who physically carries information or material between people who cannot risk being seen together. In wartime Holland, that meant carrying forged ration cards, smuggled weapons, or coded instructions past German patrols who could search anyone at any moment. There was no radio, no phone call, no email. If the message needed to move, a person had to move it. And if that person was searched, there was no talking your way out. There was only what could be hidden, and how well. So here is what actually happened on mornings like that one in Haarlem. Freddie would leave home before dawn, her bicycle loaded like any other Dutch girl running an errand for her family. Underneath real vegetables, she carried what she had been told never to open and never to ask about. She rode past checkpoints where soldiers waved cyclists through in groups, occasionally stopping when at random. She kept her face calm. She had practiced looking bored. Historian Sophie Poldermans, who spent years interviewing Freddie and her sister and later wrote about their work, has described how the sisters were trained to seem invisible, to never make eye contact that lingered, never pedal too fast or too slow. Fear, they learned, had a look to it. Soldiers were trained to notice that look, so the girls trained themselves not to show it. The stakes were not abstract. Being caught with false papers meant interrogation, and interrogation for resistance couriers in the Netherlands frequently ended in deportation or execution. Freddie and Truus knew this. Their own mother had already taken in people the Nazis were hunting. The family understood, in a way few families do, exactly what capture would cost. Here is the counterintuitive twist that most retellings leave out. The resistance leadership did not use Freddie and Truus only as couriers. As the sisters grew older through the war, van der Wiel gave them increasingly dangerous assignments, including sabotage operations against German infrastructure, and later direct actions against collaborators and Nazi officers identified as informants. It is an uncomfortable fact of the Dutch resistance that some of its most effective operatives, the ones least likely to be searched or suspected, were teenage girls, asked to do work that adults in the movement sometimes hesitated to carry out themselves. The very quality that protected them, their appearance of innocence, was also what made them useful for the war's darkest tasks. Freddie rarely spoke about this part of her war for decades afterward. When she finally gave interviews late in life, she described the psychological weight of it plainly, without embellishment and without seeking sympathy. She said she did not regret resisting. She said the not sleeping came later, and it stayed. Their story connects to a wider, better-known one. In the same Dutch resistance world that trained Freddie, a young Jewish family in Amsterdam was in hiding just a short distance away, their daughter keeping a diary that would later become one of the most read documents of the war. Anne Frank's account, written from an attic sealed off from the streets Freddie rode through, describes the same occupation from the other side of it, the side that could not move at all, that depended entirely on people willing to risk everything to bring food, information, and hope. The two stories, a girl who could move freely because no one suspected her, and a girl who could not move at all because everyone was looking for her, sit only a few miles apart in the historical record, and together they show the full shape of what occupation demanded from ordinary people. What made Freddie's kind of resistance so hard to fight was exactly what made it so hard to see. The Gestapo built its counter-resistance methods around identifying suspicious adults, known agitators, men with military training, radio operators transmitting from attics. A teenage girl delivering vegetables did not fit any profile they were watching for. This is a documented pattern across occupied Europe. Networks in France, Belgium, and Poland made the same discovery independently. Children and teenagers, precisely because they were dismissed, became some of the most reliable links in fragile chains of communication that adult lives depended on. After the war ended in 1945, Freddie Oversteegen did not receive public recognition for years. Her contributions, like those of many resistance members, were treated for decades as a private matter, something survived rather than something to be celebrated. It was not until 2014, nearly 70 years after the liberation of the Netherlands, that she and her sister were formally honored by the Dutch government with the Mobilization War Cross for their resistance work. Freddie died in 2018, one of the last living members of her cell. Her story raises a question that still matters today, in a world where young people are often told they are too young to make a difference. Somewhere in Haarlem today, there is a street Freddie once rode down on a bicycle loaded with forged papers. A street where nothing marks what happened there, because nothing needs to. The ordinary bicycle, the ordinary basket of vegetables, the ordinary Dutch teenager pedaling past a checkpoint, holds a lesson that outlasted the war itself. The people least likely to be noticed are sometimes the ones history depends on the most. It was a gray morning in Haarlem, and a girl on a bicycle rode past a checkpoint no one thought to search closely. 8 decades later, that quiet, unremarkable ride is remembered as one of the bravest of the entire war.